Hello and welcome back, friends. This is our next lesson in the series Julius Caesar, and this is all about Act 1 and Scene 1st and 2nd. This will be an overview, and I hope before you're coming for this, you would have already have a read of what is written, the text of the play. This is presented by me, Palak Sharma. Few things about me, you can always read it here. I'm a poet at heart, an economics honors student, a theatre geek, and do not forget the 3 R's and the S. Rate, review, recommend, and share the lesson. Here's my link. Follow me on Unacademy. Now, the first question which will come into your mind now is what is Julius Caesar and why should I care? So, Julius Caesar is a play that will have at its background the story of one of the greatest Roman emperor who becomes very powerful, and now those closest to him begin to be afraid that he may gain too much power, and they conspire. They have a conspiracy to assassinate him, and in fact, he is assassinated in a pretty brutal way. So there's a deliberate use of the word brutal here by me because Brutus kills him, and so it will become from Brutus the noun to brutal the adjective. This is to act against the norm because Julius Caesar, he'll be knifed over and over and over again. He'll be stabbed again and again. Then in the second part of the play, we'll see the decline of the state. We'll watch Rome go into a tailspin and there'll be no supposed ruler. So the supposed ruler was Julius Caesar. So he's removed from power and there's what we call a power vacuum. Now who will lead? So out of this steps out three primary players, and who will then try to gain power, and in this process Rome itself begins to decline. So Shakespeare was all in all interested in politics involved in what leads up to assassination and then what happens after it. So the play is really not about Julius Caesar, the play is really about Brutus. And while we go, we'll realize why this play is a tragedy and that this more about this amazing character we've got, Brutus. Brutus is an amazing character according to me because he goes through very different decision. He goes through a very different decision which is against his own conscience and which alternatively leads to his own ruin. Caesar himself, he's mostly backstage, and we'll see that Julius Caesar only a couple of times appears in the play. And once he's dead, then the real play begins. Shakespeare was a great speechwriter, but Julius Caesar's play in which two important speeches they are juxtaposed, they are placed side by side, and those speeches become the most important speeches in the history of elocution, as we call it, public speaking. One was soliloquy and the other was the aside. Soliloquy is something which we speak alone without any other character on the stage, and you will be speaking it directly to the audiences who are seeing you. And aside is something when you step out of the crowd in some sideways and then speak about what you're feeling inside. So aside usually tells us a psychological rendering of the character. Aside of the speech is very important in that case. So that's it. Okay. Now in JC 101, like one act and these are the characters. First, if you can always have a look at it, and we'll have a character analysis lesson after we have done the whole play. So initially you will see that JC Act 1, Scene 1, it begins on a street. The framing sequence is a street. It's the great city of Rome, and Shakespeare almost always opened up his plays in places other than England. So immediately we see a difference in class. There's a difference between two classes. There's the upper class, which is always the least, but they're always the best. Then we have this lower class, which are always physically the most, and they do not have any power, so they are socially and economically the least. But the upper part, it is very least in it's least in the physical terms. There are not many people who are in this class, but actually socially, economically, these are the most well privileged and powerful people. So we'll see one more thing, that JC is like Julius Caesar is out the middle class, and he gains the power and takes over the upper class to become powerful, and then the upper class fear that he may become a tyrant. So we can see in this scene that people are all dressed up and they're running out on streets, they're shouting hurrah, hurrah, because Caesar has returned. So expectation is that today Julius Caesar will be named the king, a term that English loved, but Romans don't, because English kings have total power. So Rome never allowed kings to take up upon these people, subjects. Instead, English loved the term king. They were very much into love of it. Now we see that two of the upper middle class people, like Flavius and Murillus, they are gentlemen and they speak to the lower class that you are so fickle. The carpenter, the cobbler, and there are other plebeians, the common people as well there. So they just tell him that you people are so fickle. And we realize that in like there's one important line I would like all of you to listen, because it's very metaphorically important for this play. There was Machiavelli and he said, just listen to the words, he who builds on the people builds on the mud. So we've seen what kind of structures are built on mud. All those structures are always very bad. They're bad structures. They're very unstable. So this kind of structure, the popularity which builds on the ground of common people, the plebeians, it is very, very short living. So if you trust common people, so there are certain questions which come up in our mind. And these questions are the questions of leadership, the question of politics, the question of how a group of people get along, and the question of who will be their leader and who will be the follower. Now we'll see that Pompey and Julius Caesar both were great and mighty warriors. There is no ignorance to the fact. But Pompey was the old fire. He didn't have the kind of fire which Julius Caesar had. And JC was the new kid in the town. He was the one who was going around every place, increasing his popularity. So supporters of Pompey, two of them, we have Murillus and we have Flavius, they challenged these lower class, saying that Pompey was a far greater emperor and far superior warrior. So there's a sense of jealous tension in the play. In this scene, we immediately realize, quickly realize that there is a sense of jealousy in this scene. Now, the first thing is Flavius and Murillus reprimanded. Flavius becomes too far to say that to these people that you are idiots. Now, notice they don't respond by saying, no, we're not idiots. Why? Because these people are aristocrats. They can say anything to them, they won't mind. And they have the power to say all of that. The second thing is there's awareness of the fact that they are not interested in celebrating Julius Caesar. I mean Flavius and Murillus, they are not interested in celebrating Julius Caesar because there's a hint of tension. Now there will be a group of guys to assassinate Julius Caesar, the potential king. So we can see here itself that these two people, they are a part of that potential group which will be coming to kill Caesar. Then in the next act, the scene second, we'll see an intro to the C's of the play. Now the C's of the play are, you say that almost everyone in this play has a name which starts from C. We can see we have Caesar, we have Casca, Cassius, Cicero, Calpurnia, there are a lot of people. So the opening is that there are several major characters. We can see JC himself in this scene. And this is the scene, you can always have a look at it, that we can see lots of people coming with him. We can see Cassius is a very interesting character because he'll be making observations about JC, the tension, the drama. He'll be making it like he's the guy who keeps on saying to your best friend that I don't like him, why are you going to talk to him, don't talk to her. So he's the guy who creates tension, and tension played out in more visible contracts. That is Cassius. Then we have Mark Antony, he's a pawn of Caesar, we'll see it. Then Calpurnia, Julius Caesar has tendency to mess around her. Then we have the central figure, Brutus. So we can't think of him without thinking of the adjective brutal, the bad guy. But he is the really good guy. He is one of the most honorable man in all of Rome. He is JC's closest confidant. JC and Brutus, they are friends. That will be significant at the very beginning. Because it's supposed to, like JC is supposed to respect Brutus, but he's first and foremost a patriot to Rome. We'll see that Brutus says that love for my country is more than the love for Caesar. He loves his city and he wants to only act to help his city. We see that Cassius, he has a personal hidden reason to be really worried about Julius Caesar's rising popularity, but Brutus has nothing to do with it. Cassius warns Brutus of JC's rising power, but Brutus right away shrugs it and shrugs him that he's not interested in any nasty plans towards Julius Caesar. So the number one word after Brutus, like we have got, is very loyal. Julius Caesar's most loyal friend, Brutus. We can see in this kind of thing. So therefore, the last words of Caesar when he says "et tu, Brute," because he can believe any other conspirator can knife him, but Brutus can't. So we know what's coming for Caesar, but it's going to be how it happens. It's not like something I've revealed the plot of the most greatest suspense movie of the year. It's like we all know that Caesar is going to be, how it's going to happen with Caesar. The process is important, not the end. So the part second of the play, it will deal with what happens after JC falls, the power vacuum that is made up in the whole structure of Roman Republic. That is important for us. So we can always see the dramatic significance of this act, that the most common people, they are very fond of Caesar, but they are very fickle. That is again important because we'll see in the scene second, that these people are always swaying their heads on either sides. They do not have an allegiance to one side. There are doubts and fears about Caesar's rise in the minds of the elite class, the upper middle class, because Caesar is not a part of them. They are seeing Caesar as an exogenous force, someone from the lower classes who is coming up to pick them up, who's coming to pick their powers. So they fear about Caesar. And here the personification is found in two characters, Flavius and Murallus. So that's it for this lesson, and we'll meet you again. Thank you. Rate, review, recommend, and share the lessons. Have a nice day.